Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Catherine Mattice. I'm the founder and CEO of Civility Partners, and we build positive workplace cultures through workforce surveys, training, coaching, and really working with leaders on an action plan to really move the needle on their culture. I've got Byron Low with me today. Thanks for joining me, Byron.
Well, thank you, Catherine.
Yeah. So you say you're a technical person, but you have people centered gifts, and your whole career has been dedicated to improving the lives of others. And your favorite thing is when people see their own power and own when it was previously obscured by stuff. That's also one of my favorite qualities in people. I like us to own our stuff.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit more about you. Where do you think all this people-centered, life comes from, or this world of wanting people to thrive? Where do you get that from?
It comes from my mom, who's since passed away. But my mom was a person in my life that showed me how to love people, regardless of what they look like, where they came from, what skin color, eye color, hair color. She would bring people into our home on a regular basis, and it made me feel as a kid incredibly uncomfortable. But I got to see her demonstrate and model love. And as a result, I think it was just, I think generally children, they kind of bond to one parent. They kind of have like a connection to one. Not that you don't want to have connections to both,
Yeah.
but I definitely connected to my mom. And I always longed to have that connection with my dad. My dad was more of a technical person, and even my grandfather was a technical person, but I have those abilities and the kind of the heart-centered stuff from my mom.
Okay, that's awesome. And I see people chiming in where they're from. I would love to hear. I think I forgot to say that. I normally do say it. Tell us where in the world you are. We would love to hear from you. And also feel free to ask questions all along the way as we go. We've got an expert here on essentially helping people thrive and find their why. So I love that about your mom, that she really introduced you to the world of people, and now you've got these. Sounds like you're using both sides of your brain. That's awesome. So, talk to me about people. Can people grow and change? I think we all know they can, but what are some of the types of things you see in people that they need to grow and change? Tell us a little bit more using your experience.
Well, I absolutely believe that people can grow and change, and I think that um, there are times in our life when things come from the outside. It could be an
Mm-hmm.
event, it could be a tragedy, it could be something that we witness that causes us to think a little bit differently about our lives and about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That that really forces us into it shifts us into a different way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about your story, what you experienced in the workplace really forced you to think differently, and that's why you created Civility Partners.
Yes.
And I think that kind of opportunity, as human beings, I think we have those opportunities often. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a matter of if it's the right time. Do we
Mm-hmm.
have the resources? Do we feel the support? Because sometimes something can happen to someone and they don't feel the support. So as a result of that situation or that incident, they can feel lost.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we as people, and there's a saying, do you want to go fast? Go alone. You want
Mm-hmm.
to go far? Then you go with others. Because
Mm.
human beings, we all everyone deserves dignity, honor, and respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we are able to see people as people, no matter where they are or who they are, there's
Mm-hmm.
something very special about that.
I love that. And I love we've got people from all over the world joining us. Thanks all for sharing where you're from. So, if you don't know my story, Byron just mentioned it. I started Civility Partners after working in an organization where there was someone who bullied. He was really difficult to work with, and I felt bullied, and I experienced firsthand the kind of damage he was causing the organization, given my position in HR. And yeah, started Civility Partners actually after being laid off from a new company at the beginning of the recession. And so I wonder, where does that gumption come from? Like, using myself as an example, not that I'm amazing, but I worked in this organization where there was a bully. I decided to get my master's degree and ended up doing all my graduate research on this behavior because I really wanted to understand it. And then I got a different job doing HR for a different company. I got laid off. I actually started Civility Partners that day. I came home from being laid off, opened my laptop, bought a website, and basically made a company on via a website. And then it was like, okay, I actually feel like this could be something. Where do people get that from versus somebody else who maybe comes home and feels depressed about it, or needs more time to recover? What's the difference between those two kinds of people?
It's all in the individual situations, but for you, you'd had enough, and you were going to do this, and I would venture to guess Civility Partners and being a champion for the folks that don't have a voice is your big why, and that's why you exist here on this earth. Now, I believe every single human being, just like we all have, fingerprints, right? And all the fingerprints are different. You think about that. 7 billion distinct, unique fingerprints. I believe every single human being, no matter where you are, no matter what city you live in, country you live in, whatever your socioeconomic status is, you have a unique purpose. Now, not everyone is in a situation where that unique purpose is nurtured. I do believe that as children, we see glimpses of that unique purpose even when they're little. And what I mean by that, like, every single parent knows what it's like to have a child that runs naked around the house, and there is no shame. And when they want to come to mommy and daddy, they want full union. They want to be enveloped by that love. Yeah. There's something about the big why that's even in that moment. So going back to your question, some people, it's a function of timing. It's a function of how much, like, it's almost like a battery amount of energy you have inside of you that's willing to step up and step out. For you, even though you just had another setback, you were like, no, enough. I'm done. I'm going to start this thing. And you remember exactly how it felt when you sat down on that computer and you went, okay, where do I go to get a website? And you did it. Yeah.
It's true. It's like, what's going on in my brain. It was like between a bullying scenario and being laid off. I don't want to work for anybody. And I recognize this is a problem to be solved. And I feel like I have the tools, and I'm going to find my way into this. I sometimes wonder, like, you've got that book, Find Your Why, behind you, and you're a Find Your Why coach. And I feel like a lot of times there has to be some kind of version of a rock bottom, and everybody's got their own. Mine was being laid off and, having 2 jobs in a row that were not good. Is that, but you're a Find Your Why coach. So I must be wrong that you have to hit some sort of rock bottom in order to find your why, or in order to I don't know what I'm trying to say. Can you really find your why without some big thing happening to you?
I think you can. And I want to say I'm a big why coach. Now, Find Your Why, that's your Simon Sinek. And Simon Sinek is a hero of mine. I love Simon Sinek and the work he's done. So with finding your big why, you absolutely can find your big why without hitting rock bottom. But it is the people I work with, they're all successful, and they're successful either business leaders or business owners, and they've made a ton of money. But there's something, to your point, there's something inside of them, and what I call it is kind of like a holy dissatisfaction. And what I believe is that they're disconnected from their purpose, and this is a heart thing. And when you're disconnected from your purpose, and it's not hard, our culture does not teach this. It does not show this. Right. So we stumble upon this oftentimes in our 30s, 40s, and 50s. But I think anyone can find their purpose. But once you find your purpose, I think you don't have to be a person that's living on purpose to be successful. You can be financially successful and be miserable. Right. But it is possible for you to be successful and then overlap your purpose on top of that. You will still be successful, but you get this little cherry on top, and it's called happiness and fulfillment. And I think to your point, there usually is this malaise, this background noise of dissatisfaction, of disconnection, of feeling like things are not, they're misaligned.
Yeah.
And I think that in America, in North America, for crying out loud, most people that I know feel that.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that, hey, you don't have to feel like that.
Right. You can find a why. Alex, I see your question, and we're going to get to it in 1 second. And also, Alex, I'm in San Diego, so I'm glad to see you're my neighbor in Carlsbad. So when you're coaching people, are you helping them in a way find that holy dissatisfaction, because that's where the why is, something that you're wanting to solve?
We have to journey together, and there has to be a self-discovery. And as a coach, I'm a guide.
Right.
So it's like if we're going to go on a mountain hike or a mountain climbing expedition, I'm going to use my legs, and you're going to use your legs. And maybe I've been on the trail before, and I've taken people up the same trail before, but it's going to be a unique trail because it's your trail.
Right.
But you're going to have to one that has to exert effort. You're the one that has to be able to do the work. I'm there as a guide. Sure, I have some pretty cool tools I can show you and I can share with you. But really, it's like someone said on your LinkedIn profile. They said, Catherine's a rock star. He said, forgive me. I mean, and he made a reference to Billy Idol. You are a rock star. You look at the work that you've done. It is absolutely remarkable. It really is remarkable.
Thank you.
And if you and I are going to ascend up this mountain, it's all about you. It's all about Catherine. I have some tools. I have some experience, but it really is about Catherine tapping into what is her holy dissatisfaction and leaving space for that so that she can capture it and understand it and kind of look around it and observe it. And not necessarily, change it. It's just that because a part of that could be your inner critic, because everyone has that the voice inside of our heads that kind of can drive us crazy.
Yeah,
that thing's actually there to support us, believe it or not. But the point is, there's all kinds of things that go into this. But what's really amazing is when a client kind of discovers that it's really kind of the overlapping of understanding who they are, what they're really good at, what people have told them in the past, man. Because you've had positive feedback before.
Yeah.
And that's part of what led you into doing what you're doing now.
Yeah. It's also my love language. You can tell me how amazing I am all day long, and I'll take it. AJ, I see your question also, and we will get to that in 1 second. I'm going to do Alex first. So any thoughts for people who may have found their why later in life and wish they'd found it sooner?
Yeah, there's no expiration date on finding your why. You find your why. You know what you want to do, Catherine?
What?
You want to make a difference in the world, right?
Yes.
You want to make a dent. So all you and I, because you and I have the same mission.
Yeah.
We want to wake people up so that they can make a difference in the world. So it doesn't matter when you discover that, when you find it, just when you find it, go do it.
Yeah. And do it quick. Get started right away. Don't let the head trash get in your way is my thought. I think if I hadn't come home from being laid off that day, and it was just kind of this thought was bubbling inside me, and I had to kind of get it out of my head and onto paper or a website. I don't know. What if I had waited 3 days? Maybe I would have talked myself out of it, or, I could be in a totally different place. So, and I didn't ask anybody, do you think I should do this? I just went home and started it. And I made the website just to even see if I was going to tackle the workplace bullying issue. There's no model for that. There's no competitor at the time to go like, what are they doing? What services should I offer? It just kind of all came out of my head. So I think, doing it as soon as you have the idea and your gut's telling you to do it, do it. So I can always count on my buddy AJ to ask some great questions. And we were going to get to this, AJ, but thanks for kicking it off. What are a couple tips that you can leave us for today around finding our why. I do feel lucky that I found a why. It's kind of funny. I'm lucky that I was bullied and laid off because I'm here. But so my mission, I feel like, was the dots connected kind of on their own. But what about those people where that's maybe not so? What's a tip or two you can offer us?
Before I offer a tip, I want to just piggyback on what you were just talking about, as far as it's something that we all have in common. Everyone on the planet shares this, and it's our relationship with time.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, when you are sensing that it's time to do something, or you want to move into a different direction, or like I said earlier, there's like almost like a mind shift.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait. And if you need to talk to someone, that's fine. Talk to someone. You can talk to me. I mean, I'd be happy to talk to you. But the point is that it's almost like as the grains of sand go through the hourglass,
Mm-hmm.
it's doing that for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
We only have a limited time on this planet to make a difference. So I would just compel you to, if you're on the fence or thinking about it, do it. So some tips. Real easy tip. When you look back on a couple of things, you look back on your life, and there's an exercise that I love working this exercise with clients, because it's amazing. We go back and we look at incidences in their life, and it's actually called a life map.
Okay.
But one of the things that's really, really amazing when you go back in your life and you look at these mile markers of like they're like a mile marker, and it's a big H,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a praise. It's situations and moments when people literally praised you for your ability, for something you did, something you said, the fact that you were there. And our lives, our history is littered with those.
Okay.
But again, in our culture, we don't do anything with those. They happen, and we don't even really think about them.
Yeah.
But those are such huge past indicators of future success and fulfillment, more than almost anything that can be. And they're incredible. When clients go back and do that, and again, this isn't me. I'm not some guru. I'm not some magician. It's work that they're doing. And once they do it, all of a sudden, and this is really powerful, when a client begins to see themselves and hear themselves, the coaching's done. Because ultimately, they're their best coach.
Right. So that's a great tip. So everybody, let's all promise each other, even if you're not really looking for a why, but I think it's a great exercise for all of us, just to give us a little self-esteem boost to go through our lives and think about the times we've been praised, and just have that so that we know that. And then if you really are looking for a why, that's a great way to figure out, well, what am I really good at, and what do people see in me that maybe I don't see in myself. What else? Give us another tip.
Along with that, you're going to be able to go through an exercise where you would find and discover your strengths. And there's all kinds of assessments online. One of the ones that I use is called Strength Finders. And there's a lot of science actually behind those strengths. Or another word is called competencies or skills. But when you overlay what you're really good at, what you were praised at when you were younger, and then what you really are good at doing now, and then what you love to do, it's just like layer after layer after layer. All of that becomes really compelling, because again, it reinforces that inner self-belief. And all of a sudden, when you start talking to yourself like, hey, you can do this. Hey, you can, it's funny because my family, we watch Survivor together. And one of the first episodes, one of the contestants said, we can do hard things. And I was just talking with my family the other day. It's like, yeah, we can do hard things. And it's okay that it's hard, because we can do hard things. And when you start to coach yourself, we can do hard things. That's totally true.
Yep. I love that. There's I have a 4-year-old son, and he has a book called I Can Do Hard Things. And it's so funny because every once in a while the title of my 4-year-old's book inspires me. Like, I can do hard things. So it's and actually I'm a fan. I love my quotes. So right outside of my office in our hallway is a whole wall of all sorts of quotes. My door is glass, so the one I can look at all day every day says, "You got this." And it just sometimes I need that. Maybe not everybody needs those kind of statements, but I like to surround myself with this wise words of just, yeah, you got this. I've got a quote from Snoop Dogg, if you've ever seen when he got his star in the Walk of Fame in Hollywood. At the end of the speech, he says, I'd like to thank me. I'd like to thank me for all my hard work. I'd like to thank me for always giving more than I get. And like, it's just, that portion of the speech is on the wall. Cause it's not luck. Sometimes there's a little bit of luck, but man, I work hard to get where I am, and I continue to, and I have a team that works hard. And Candace wrote it. I could do hard things. Here, I'm going to put it up just for all of us. We need a reminder. We can do hard things. So I know for me, and I'm curious about your thoughts, when I started Civility Partners, and at the time that's not what it was called No Workplace Bullies. A lot of people told me there's no way you can do this. They'd never even really heard of the phrase workplace bullying. This was 14 years ago when diversity, equity, and inclusion wasn't even really a conversation either. So people we're kind of like, you can't have a business around bullying. And also, how are you going to pay your bills? So I think our society really teaches us that you got to do the 9-to-5 thing and kind of just fit into the norms. So I read tons of books in the realm of, positive psychology and personal development, Simon Sinek, Tony Robbins, all of that, because I was not getting any kind of positive reinforcement from anybody around me, literally. And so do you have any specific books that you might recommend to people? Because you are going to get some naysayers. Even if you say, I want to start a nonprofit that's going to do X, everybody loves the idea, but they get nervous. Well, how are you going to pay your bills? When are you going to do this? And they start to try to almost talk you out of it without doing it on purpose. Where can we get some positive reinforcement? And I'm going to put Richard's quote up too.
So before I answer your question about books, and I love books, and I learned, and I actually discovered listening to books like 5 years ago, as opposed to reading books. So now I listen to books more than read them. But going back to what it's like, the audacity. How dare you, Catherine, to think that you can actually start something? Mm-hmm. And I would say this to everyone who's listening. And this is going to sound crazy. If you can think it, you can do it. Mm-hmm. I had a former boss because I wanted to start something, and he looked at me like with this incredulous look, and he said, "What makes you think you can do that?" I said, "Well," and I won't use his name. "Well, because it's in my mind. I'm thinking about it, and I'm seeing it. And I know exactly what I need to do in order to get from one point," because it's not like you go from A to Z. You go from A to B, and then from B to C. So it's just a bunch of steps. Right. It's not. I mean, something my brother says. It's not rocket surgery. Right. So it's literally it's you want to try something. You want to do something. What Catherine and I are saying today is go for it. Do it. And I honestly think if you can think it, you can do it. So books, anything by Simon Sinek. Anything by Adam Grant, anything by Malcolm Gladwell, anything by Jim Collins, and there's a whole bunch more. But I think Brene Brown, a huge teacher of mine. Another one is Daniel Pink, huge teacher. So, and by the way, if you don't have enough money to listen to books on Amazon, if you're in the United States, if you have a library card, you can use an app called the Libby, Libby, and it's free. And you can listen. I've listened to most of the books I've listened to, and I literally listened to it 2 or 3 times.
Okay, with an app called Libby, Libby. That's
right.
Okay. Thank you for that tip. I'm gonna reach into that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think of his name. You'll see if you can help me remember. There was one person I listened to a lot of his speeches, and he's from like late 70s, early 80s, kind of one of the forefathers of this whole personal development movement. And he tells a story about his kind of rock bottom, as we were talking about earlier, was that some Girl Scouts came to his house to sell back in the day when they knocked on the door and asked him if he wanted to buy cookies, and he literally couldn't afford it. He didn't have the cash. And he's like, that was a rock bottom. I lied to the Girl Scouts and told them I already had cookies. And what kind of person lies to a Girl Scout? And cookies aren't that expensive anyways. What is wrong with this picture? And that really forced him to go seeking a mentor. And then he did. And he learned a lot from this mentor. And then that's kind of how his journey started. I wish I could remember his name at the moment. Okay, AJ's got another great question. I love AJ. He comes to all of my shows and I love it. And he's always got great questions. So you gave a wonderful tip about talking to someone, possibly to figure out the why. Can outside perspectives from loved ones. So in addition to figuring out kind of where the moments of praise for us, how can we lean on outside people? Jim Rohn. Thank you, Nazir. Jim Rohn. He's a good one. Watch his speeches on YouTube.
That was going to be my guess, because Jim Rohn's the one that really taught and mentored Tony Robbins.
Okay. I did not know they had a relation. I knew Ken Blanchard had mentored Tony Robbins also. But okay. So how can we lean on our loved ones to help us find our why?
So there's one of the most important aspects of coaching, and this is going to be for the coaching that I provide, but also the coaching that Catherine's team provides. It's really this idea of even if, because there are people out there who are internal processors. Now, I have people in my family who are internal processors, which means that when they have an idea, thought, belief, feeling, it's inside and it just stays inside. And you can ask them how they're doing and they're going to say, fine.
Yeah.
and that'll be it every single time. But if you're an external processor, even though I'm an introverted person, I'm an external processor. And externally processing means you need to get it out in order to, kind of process it. Right. So one of the most important aspects of any coaching is the expression, even for internal processors, expression of getting it out. So how a family member, or not even just a family member, but a good friend, but the bottom line is that because not all family members are trusted,
right,
are trustworthy.
Right.
But as long as someone's trustworthy and you can be vulnerable and they understand that here's the deal. The deal is that I'm going to share and there's no judgment. You just have to listen.
Right.
And then we can switch. But the whole idea is that when they're listening to allow you to express. Right. And I believe the expression is really helpful if it's verbal, but I also really believe, and again, not everyone's a journaler. I mean, I'm not a journaler, but I've learned so much by having to force myself to journal, because when you go back again, that's when a human being can hear their own thoughts. They hear their thoughts when they read their words that they've written, and it can become incredibly powerful. So the last thing I would say is that, so when you have a loved one, a friend, family, someone who's really trusted and that you can express with, as long as it's safe, because you cannot share with anyone and it's not safe. Do not share with anyone that's not safe. But I think that the other thing is that this is your journey. And they're on a journey too. So there are times when your excitement, just there's you have to be careful about your excitement, enthusiasm bleeding over to where you're might be wanting them to change, and their change is their change. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is your own journey and your own heart, your own development.
Yeah, I'd love to add to your answer as well. Just having been someone who was telling people I'm going to do this and everyone telling me not to, I think when you're kind of being careful of who you talk to, like you said, maybe you have even they are trusted family members, you trust them, but maybe they're going to be the kind of person to try to talk you out of something. You have to be very conscious and aware of that, so that you could say, I'm going to go to this person because I do want to hear their reasons why not, and be cautious of taking that in and not letting them talk me out of something. And just, I want to hear what kind of roadblocks do they see for me in this journey. Or you decide, I don't want to talk to that person about it because I don't need all of that right now. I'm focused on what I'm doing. So that's one piece of advice. And then I just remember when I started, the number of opinions I got from everywhere. I mean, again, I started workplace bullying when it wasn't a thing. Nobody talked about that. There was no, now I'm in California where abusive conduct is part of our harassment prevention that we have to do. That they're talking about bullying in the law. So it was just really recognizing that, look, people, I was in graduate school and I read thousands of articles about this. So you can tell me you don't know what it is and you don't think I can start a business around it, but I can tell you that I know it exists on a big scale because I've read, I didn't just make this phrase up in my head. So I think there has to be that level of confidence to say, thanks for your opinion. And then really finding the people who did say, I see where you're going with this. So I happened to get lucky. I found a mentor who understood exactly what I was trying to accomplish. And she was actually already kind of coaching doctors who had been getting low patient scores, because of their aggressive or abrasive type of an attitude. And so she actually is the one who came up with the name Civility Partners. And without her, I probably wouldn't have gotten as far either, because she was my big, you got this. I understand what you're trying to accomplish and I'm going to help you. So yeah, being careful of the opinions you take in. Now we're at time. If you have a couple more minutes, we've got another great question. I've got a couple more minutes if you do, Byron.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. So Salman is asking essentially if, you might find a big why and you're ready to quit your job and go and do it, but you also have a mortgage and a family and financial obligations, and that may really keep people from jumping in. What do we do? What is the place with that?
There's no doubt. And I've had this happen many times. I remember how I was having a conversation with a client years ago, and he wanted to go. I mean, he had a family and a young family, and he wanted to go do something. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I mean, and again, in my style of coaching, it's not there. There are kinds of styles of coaching that are very directive. Like the coach will actually get in their face, and that's not my style.
Yeah.
But I just asked him a question. I says, well, what about your family? And he says, what do you mean about it? And he asked me, what do you mean about your family? I said, well, literally just basic, logical, how are you going to afford to live where you're currently living and doing? And that question was enough. And again, I wasn't trying to throw a wet blanket on him at all.
Right.
But I think that if you have a family and you have obligations and you have a responsibility, this is a word that, it's not my word, it's Tony Robbins' word. You need to be resourceful. You need to be incredibly resourceful. And if that means that you don't sleep as much, you're resourceful to work towards that why and what you're wanting to do, but you do not ever abandon your family. Mm-hmm. Because your children, they're going to have a different why. Your wife may have, or your spouse may have a different why. But you need to make sure all that is cared for. And as you go off to start whatever you're looking to start. So please do not misinterpret the idea of finding your big why gives you the license to go and just, to leave a responsibility, because that is not what I'm saying at all.
Yes. Yeah. I appreciate it. I'm glad you asked that, Salman, because that's not what we're saying. And I experienced that. I was lucky enough to start my business when I was single. I didn't have kids. I lived in a little apartment by the beach, and I got out of grad school, so I was able to teach college at the community college level, essentially. And so that was my job while I was building. And so I'd been able to find this job where it wasn't a 9-to-5. I was teaching on campus, and then I came home, and that was enough to pay my bills in my tiny little apartment with no kids. And then my now ex-husband, but he started a business, and that was a big concern for him. It's like, well, at this point we have a mortgage and I wish I had started sooner before I had all these obligations. So he's still thriving, by the way. So that's good. All right, everyone. This has been a really fantastic conversation. I love it when the audience is participating as much as you all have. So thank you so much. Stacy mentioned Gary Vee is another good one to listen to. If you like that tough love, Gary Vee is your guy. If you want more conversation around this, reach out to Byron. His LinkedIn is right here on this page. If you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, you can locate Byron. Do you want to give us your website, your email? How should people get in touch with you?
Yeah. BigY.coach is the domain, and Byron at bigY.coach is my email.
Okay, there we go. And thank you so much, Byron. I really appreciate this conversation. It was really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
All right. Bye, everyone.